Breaking news, the U.S. bombing campaign in Iran is happening right now for the second night in a row to stop Iran striking ships in the Strait of Hormuz. The U.S. already struck more than 80 targets yesterday after Iran bombed 3 ships. Plus, the U.S. military is now ready to go to restart the blockade on Iran if they're ordered to do so. Let's take you now to Fox News senior correspondent Mike Tobin, joining us live in Tel Aviv with more. Mike, always great to see you, sir. Thank you so much for joining us. What more can you tell us?
Well, I can tell you right now that Central Command confirms that another round of airstrikes is underway as we speak in Iran, quote, to further degrade Iran's ability to interfere with the freedom of navigation in the Strait of Hormuz. Now, earlier today, President Trump was less than subtle, hinting that airstrikes would take place tonight in Iran. And this after another round of strikes against commercial shipping in the Strait of Hormuz. The president indicated that he had just lost his patience with his Iranian counterparts.
They're cuckoo. There's something wrong with these people. And for 47 years, they've been the bully of the Middle East, and they're not the bully anymore. They're not the bully anymore. And all we want, it's very simple. They can't have a nuclear weapon. That's what I'm there for.
The U.S. response last night involved Air Force and naval jets. Weapons like Tomahawk missiles were not used in the strikes. 80 targets were hit. Secretary of War Pete Hegseth says the targets included the small boats that harass shipping in the Strait, underground storage of drones and missiles, coastal defense sites, and radar sites. Now, Iran responded by firing into their neighbors, Kuwait and Bahrain. The Kuwaiti army stated that 2 missiles and 13 drones were fired at them, and they were all intercepted. CENTCOM says the U.S. now has 20 warships in the region, 2 carrier strike groups, and a U.S. source says the Navy is prepared to instate the blockade on Iranian ports. Now, the impact of these strikes on commercial shipping was immediate. Yesterday, some 41 ships transited the Strait of Hormuz. Today, 7. Liz, back to you.
Mike Tobin, great reporting as always. Stay safe out there. Thank you so much. Now, please listen to this.
They are behaving very badly, as they have for 47 years. And, you know, we hit them hard last night. They launched a couple of drones and 1 rocket, 1 missile, and at ships, because they were in the strait, which they have every right to be. And so we hit them very hard last night, very, very hard. Probably hit them hard again tonight. I'll give them a little warning, we're going to hit them hard tonight. We're not attacking at the highest level. The highest level are the bridges. They're which we can knock down. I would say in one day we knocked down every single bridge in Iran. There's not a thing they can do about it. We attacked Kharg Island last night. We knocked out a piece. I said, don't touch the oil, because maybe we'll take over Kharg Island. You know, we may take over Kharg Island. There's not a thing they can do about it. The fake news likes to say how well they're doing. They're doing terribly. They have 350% inflation. When the war started, they had like 6%, 5%. They have, they want to make a deal, but they don't know how to make a deal, and then they go around shooting ships at night. I don't like that. They're dealing with great people, but I don't know. I think they're a little loco. They're a little crazy.
That's President Trump today at the NATO summit in Ankara, warning the U.S. will hit Iran. It is happening right now. We're in breaking news mode. The strikes have begun. Trump also says the U.S. may seize Iran's Kharg Island. That is the primary backbone of Iran's oil export empire. The U.S. also reimposed sanctions on Iranian oil sales. Iran is in hyperinflation. Joining us now, veteran Army Special Forces. He is a terrific soldier and a wonderful expert. He's a Middle East expert. He's Jim Hanson. Jim, it's great to see you again. Does it sound to you like the president is going to finish the job here, as he puts it? And what does that look like? What does it mean when it comes to seizing Iran's nuclear bomb material? They've got enough for 11 atomobombs. Where do you see this going?
I think he did what he needed to do, which was to give every attempt for negotiations and a peaceful settlement to come out of this. You know, you can look at it and say, okay, well, that was never going to work. You don't know until you try. And they had never been hit as hard as we hit them with military force. So there was a possibility that they would come to their senses. I think a lot of people said they wouldn't, but you still have to find out. And I commend the president for trying. Now they're in a situation where he no longer sees them as a viable negotiating partner. And that's a bad move on their part, because that means regime change could come into play.
So what does that mean? Will the president, do you think the president will put boots on the ground to do regime change and to seize Kharg Island?
I don't think he will put boots on the ground to do regime change in Iran proper. There's nobody going to 82nd Airborne is not going to jump into Tehran. I think we might seize Kharg Island. I don't know that it helps as much. I think it's a better threat. If they can't get the oil out of there, there's no point, in having our troops that close where they could be targets for their short-range drones and missiles and things. So I don't know that there's a big threat of U.S. troops being in danger. But there are other ways to go about regime change that involve dealing with the disaffected minorities in the country and the rest of the population. And I think that's about to be something that comes more into play.
Let's listen to Vice President J.D. Vance here. Watch this.
The basic deal that we cut was, we'll lift our blockade if you stop shooting at ships. But if you shoot at ships, we are going to punch back, and we're going to punch back harder than ever before. That was the deal. They said they would stop shooting at ships, and what happened 24 hours ago? They started shooting at ships again. Now, they were good, they were well behaved for about a week, but then they started shooting at ships. So the deal is very simple. If they shoot at ships, we're going to knock the hell out of them, and it's that simple.
So it sounds like, the ceasefire over, the MOU done. Would U.S. troops be in harm's way if the U.S. seizes Kharg Island and we put U.S. troops there to do that?
Oh, no doubt. That's one reason to not do it. I mean, putting them there doesn't gain as much advantage as putting the blockade back in effect. As long as Iran can't get their oil out, that's as effective as seizing Kharg Island. I think then the other forms of pressure, both all the whole of government power, economic, diplomatic, and some more very painful strikes, and probably some strikes at regime leadership again. Both Mossad and CIA have a nice list of where the top leaders are and have been tracking them. I wouldn't want to be sleeping above ground if I was any of those guys at this point.
All right, Jim Hanson, thank you so much, and thank you again for your service to America. We appreciate you so much.